in a world where you insist that Miss Piggy is sex crazed, we had to watch something that was a little crazier than that concept. Because I swear to crap that I've never seen Miss Piggy be longing for some long dong.
Dude,
It may be, but I don't know. But we'll find out one day. But not in this video because this has nothing to do with Miss Piggy. Although maybe if the realms collide, it will. Today we're talking about a flick by the name of Baskin. It is a Turkish movie that has made some waves in certain circles. And, this is a movie that's indicative of what it is to watch a film where culturally you're kind of like at odds with it. Because, this is a Turkish movie, as aforementioned, and it is very much... In fact, we kind of, in our private conversation earlier, I referred to how it is watching Italian movies of a certain era where they just don't gel with the expectations of an American viewing audience. This movie is very much this, only in regards to, the film culture of its originating country. It is not the standard fare, let's say that. So off the cuff, if you're considering watching this movie, don't go in expecting anything remotely like an American movie would offer, because you're not going to get that, and you're going to be like, what the fuck? And or just hate it immediately. So that's a thing right there. If exploring beyond your comfort zone in certain regard, not talking about gore and gruel and all that. I'm just a comfort zone in terms of how a film is structured and made and is paced, etc. Then this might not be for you. However, there are many people that like to explore beyond said comfort zone, and we certainly are that type of folk. So we're going to talk about this movie, our impressions of it. You haven't seen this movie. This was your first go. I've seen it once before, and it was a strange affair to see this movie. It was one of those things where it was unsettling, not because of the subject matter, which in itself is, that's a whole other thing we can talk about, but it was just a strange experience to watch it. At times it is kind of like a dreamlike and then surreal and almost impossible to grasp at times. At others, it's just uncomfortable to watch. It's a unique experience that I had watching it. So I'm interested to see what your reaction to it was. I'm gonna fucking go ahead and bet right now that you loathed it because, and this is based solely off this, at one point I literally saw you in your pants.
What?
Like somehow your entire upper body was in your pants.
Well,
and you were just a head with legs. I don't know how
Gross.
your pants can stretch that
This
far.
never happened.
It was your damn dome and a fucking like those long-legged things that were caught on CCTV.
Oh, night crawlers?
Night crawler legs.
By that you mean huge worm legs.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. Watching this movie was a painful experience. Not for the reasons that you might think, but because I think I have some sort of weird allergic reaction.
To?
I don't know. Before we started watching this. Mm-hmm. Because my throat was hurting the entire time.
I did hear you go.
Yeah, it was horrifyingly painful. And any kind of light was hurting my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people flashing lights towards the freaking screen. So I was like, Spain! So that was the thing. That was the thing I had to...
Does it explain the pants situation?
Well, the
Where
pants...
you were just a head with legs?
Yeah, see, like instead of hives, I have a tendency to just turn into pants when I get allergies.
You break out in pants?
Yes. I don't know what the pants situation... I don't remember the pants.
I just remember being highly annoyed at some sort of movement next to me, and then I turn, and you're just a head with pants. I'm telling you, it was just a head, and then you were in your pants. You had moved your pants somehow over your shoulders.
I mean, my pants do go pretty high.
Apparently.
But I don't remember doing that.
Anyway.
Yeah, pants.
That's what I remember. but anyway, illness, or I'm sorry, reaction aside, What is wow, how do you react process to this movie?
I feel like it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel like a lot of it is just kind of weird shit to be weird. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you know, it did kind of have that vibe from it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I also think maybe this was just because of the horrible pain I was in,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like some of it could have been trimmed a little to have more of an impact. But again, I was in horrible pain, so I can't be a judge of pacing during that.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the midget guy. Normally, I'm not a fan of midgets, visually at least. Obviously, there's cool ones, rare though they may be. But he was pretty cool, man. He was a creepy little guy.
Creepy little guy. His name's Mehmet. If you want to hang out with him.
A ripped ass, weird looking midget.
I'm not sure he qualifies as a midget.
Nah, he's kind of like a short guy.
He has some sort of physical impairment, and or not, because he's ripped.
Dude,
shit.
he's so ripped. I feel like this dude like knows he's hideous in the face region.
Mm-hmm.
And well endowed when it comes to lips. So he like made up for it by being insanely ripped. Yeah, like dude, I'm just gonna freaking. And he's got like this little walk that's pretty cool. You know.
So what we've gathered is you love ripped midgets. is the end game for you?
There's something cool about a short guy that is insanely ripped. You know.
I mean,
and I'm not talking about muscly kids, because muscly kids are kind of gross.
Muscly kids just suck.
Right? They're disgusting.
Yeah.
Freaking yeah, I wouldn't mind uppercutting a muscly kid, but like a grotesque, hideous man who is ripped as shit is kind of cool, especially in the world of horror. I feel like this is a terrible point.
Yeah, it's horrendous in the worst way possible. But I'm rolling with it.
He's cool
because clearly his physique had an impact on his followers.
Apparently, dude, I think those guys were just like, "Damn, this homie is hella ripped."
Anyways, if you haven't seen Baskin, and if you're still watching that after that midget detour, then the best way to describe this movie is a troop of policemen from Turkey, obviously, are called for backup at this location that has something of an air of ill repute, shall we say. And there they come across what can basically be described as a gruesome ritual to open a gateway. And it is made to be understood that this ritual is on this night because it is a night in which there is a confluence of realms and everything coexists at the same time, which is a pivotal element in the structure of this particular film. To get to this point, however, we have a labored process, if you will, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, to get to this point, because a lot of things have to be established. However, this is where we come across the structure of the film, which is very unconventional in the sense that there is a again, I don't 100% know, as don't partake of Turkish films 24/7.
Yeah.
But it could definitely be a cultural thing or not, or just the style of the particular director, which I am inclined to believe. There is a tone and pace to it that is very particular before you get to, so to speak, the meat of the action. No pun intended if you've seen the movie. But yes, that is the gist of it. You know what I'm saying? That's really how the best way to describe this movie is via a gist, because there is so much going on. And, at times it could be confusing the way it's presented, shall we say. So tell me something about this film, good or bad.
Look, I can't tell you anything. I can't give this movie more praise than it had a cool midget. But that midget was cool, dude.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm serious. The weird like seriously, that midget was cool.
Yeah.
He had a presence.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I was in the moment, I was in the time in the movie, because I actually really liked the beginning half.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when they're just kind of talking and shit, and just kind of like these little sprinkles of weirdness. I think the sequence when they get to the weird, I don't know what that building was. What was that building? They say what it is. What that building was?
It was a mansion that had a history. At one point, it was a police station.
Yeah.
And another, etc.
Yeah, when they get to that building, there's a lot of. I mean, it's a thing in horror, obviously, but a lot of people walking around.
Mm.
And that's where I was kind of feeling a little bit of like, again, I don't know if it was just because I was in horrible pain and apparently converting myself into pants. But I was kind of feeling a little bit of like this could, be get to a point a little quicker. But then the homie came in and he like really freaking kind of made everything come together.
I'll put this out on the table, see how you take it. The first half of this movie, shall we say, that's fair, right? The first half is introducing us to our core characters, which is these policemen, right?
Yeah.
And what's interesting about these policemen, they're not tackled in the typical Hollywood fashion.
No, they're kind of scummy.
Yeah, they're a little scummy. There's definitely a gray area that they're inhabiting, and that's pretty cool. That actually kind of makes them
interesting,
way more interesting that you would assume what is otherwise really just pedestrian characters. So that's a very interesting approach because it adds so much layer of character to them almost with zero effort. So that's really cool.
And it really doesn't give you a feel for who the main character is or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, is very pivotal to the way this movie ends up going, So, yeah, very cool. I totally agree. Along the way, however, we're giving hints as to something bigger going on. In this respect, I credit this movie as pseudo-Lovecraftian, not only because there's a cult trying to bring something forth that's beyond our understanding. Obviously, that would count, but there is a literal sense of, something bigger at work that you almost never touch. Everything is almost on the physical realm, even when it's on the metaphysical one. We don't get a peek into this bigger thing. It's all implied, and a movie that recently did that was Midsummer. It implied things in imagery before manifesting them, and this movie does the same thing, and it comes to us via this exploration of the house where these characters realize they've stumbled into something gruesome at first, it seems, but it just turns out to be the minutia of this ritual, this bigger ritual which has a bigger intent and purpose. And we see things on the wall, fleeting images of things on the wall, which eventually come to fruition in front of us. And obviously the mega midget, as we call it, clarifies this via which I guess you could call it a form of exposition, but really it's so
not really. Yeah,
it's so it's so in the moment and in the spirit of this ritual that it itself is kind of vague and
I could see this being a very frustrating movie for some people because it doesn't really tell you anything.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of shows you shit.
Yeah.
Which for me at a certain point did feel like this is just weird to be weird. Which I think I'm all for. Don't get me wrong, but in that middle section where it did just kind of feel like weird to be weird. Of course, it does come together at the end.
Yeah, this is why I think you're being kind of like tackling a fucking illness might have really not helped, because this is a movie that requires a lot of attention to details, and even then it's a complex fucking movie. Everything is laid out for you, even if it's a little vague at times. There's a reason for just about everything, even the frogs. But you have to. Yes, there's a lot of frogs in this movie. They should get their own credit, by the way, which I guess they kind of do, right?
No, the handlers.
Frog handler. I mean, that's pretty good credit, right?
Nah, the frogs individually have to get each one credit.
Each one, especially Renard.
And they all just say frog.
Renard as frog.
Yeah, or Rana.
Um, but yeah, it's one of those movies that's a puzzle that's unveiling as it goes, unspooling and revealing itself as it goes. And the thing about this puzzle that, unlike a movie, say like I don't know, like a early Hitchcockian movie, where you know what the character knows as you go, that kind of the structure here. Only with Hitchcock, it's working with stuff that is comprehensible and tangible and in the physical realm, right? This movie is working with not only the physical realm, but the weird spiritual implications and the metaphysical and the mind, at times. It's working on all these levels, telling the same story. So, again, yeah, that's a lot of stuff to chew on, which is one of the big reasons I really, really like this movie, aside from, the normal set of reasons that you could put out there. That's one of those movies that begs to be figured out, if you will, to be played with, to revisit, to see the intricacies of it, etc. But anyway, it certainly doesn't help to, apparently not have vision or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't, because for me this whole movie was there's frogs and then a midget. And then I guess some people are having sex. And then a grotesque, ugly, fat lady that gives birth to an ugly baby.
It's a stillbirth.
Yeah.
The whole ritual thing was
that was my experience during this during this movie, which was not a good experience.
So there you go. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if that was because of the situation or just that is your experience with it, but I don't know, man. I really, really enjoy this. Well, enjoy is not the right way to say it. It's a pretty uncomfortable movie to watch at times, but I mean, there's purpose behind everything for me in this particular. It's just a complex movie in that respect. But anyway, give me something else that you might want to say besides frogs and ripped midgets.
Damn it. Frogs are pretty cool. I think the what I guess ends up being the main character guy, and his homie. That was kind of interesting. Like the moments they have, I guess, in the mind, were pretty cool and interesting. So I'll give praise to that.
Yeah, there's a interesting kind of like, I mean, it's not really a subplot, but let's call it that for the sake of trying to put this movie in American terms, regarding our what essentially becomes our main character, and he's a rookie in this squad, and we are, we understand as viewers that the guy heading this squad has kind of always been looking over him ever since his parents died. And the key to understanding this movie is 100% behind their interactions in yes, kind of like this mind realm that they share. Now, this is one of those tenuous things in this movie where it's not 100% clear whether this is a psychic communication they're having. This is a gift that they have. There's a line in there that implies that. Or because all time is existing simultaneously in this area, this is literally them talking at the brink of death. It's never 100% clear, but that's kind of cool because both of those things are happening in the movie. There's obviously a mental communication element in the movie, and two, it's 100% happening that all realms of dimensions of reality are existing at this one point at the one time. So both these things work. I think it's the mind thing, mind you, because that's what fits in more with the conclusion of the film. But yes, it's a very important one, and two, kind of like a very riveting exchange between these two characters. It's where you really get the meat of not only their character, but the meat of the movie kind of ironed out for you. Again, in these kind of like hard to grasp pseudo vagaries, because they're talking metaphysical matter, so to speak. But yeah, very, very cool. Another thing I gotta point out is this movie is gruesome at times, which makes you. It's weird because some of the people that praise this movie focus on that, which is like a minor detail in this movie, in my opinion. I don't know if you disagree with that, but and maybe it's just a standard with a lot of horror fans. They focus more on the visual rather than something else. But yes, there is a gruesome element to this movie. There's a very visceral portion of it, and it mostly has to do with this the again, as I aforementioned, kind of like the nuances of this ritual, which I guess you kind of would equate to like a black mass if you were putting it in Christian terms, right? So what we see is the cultists and everybody that's involved in this particular thing doing their thing, right? And this is what these characters stumble onto, and there's a variety of unsettling things. However, I don't think they're disturbing in a gratuitous sense.
I think it's more so in the stuff that happens before. Like when they're just walking around, there's like these weird guys humping and shit, or people like chopping meat and shit. I think it's more like you could see it more being like more gruesome, I guess, to use a word that is very appropriate. But yeah, once the actual final sequence, or not even sequence, but final scene begins, it doesn't come off as too much or anything.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm kind of an odds to say it's not gratuitous, because there is a gratuitous factor to the idea of showing gruesome things, what I'm saying? But yeah, it's not like exploitative, I guess would be the better way. Yeah. It's not like, hey, check out my gore, guys. It's check not out that. These dudes. It's just, and maybe at first the impression would be that, but as you begin to see the bigger picture, it's very clear that it's not that. Also, it doesn't indulge in it. It's not like the camera's all there and we get these unnecessary long shots of viscera and shit. No, it's just literally a process that you're being shown bit by bit. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's visually striking, and it's kind of like like fucking weird, for lack of better words. So I get the kind of like sudden impression of it, but I don't understand those people that focus on that so much, as it's such a very small part of it. I would more focus on midget guy doing his thing, which is
or frogs,
or the frogs, So yeah, man. What do you think about the depiction of this cult overall? And I know obviously midget is super cool.
Dude, but the midget is rad. I feel like I don't want to be mean about it, but there's a lot of dudes just like writhing on the floor, and I was just like, these dudes are kind of corny, these writhing dudes. But that's mainly because I'm not a huge fan of writhing dudes.
You prefer gesticulating and grinding,
or beefcakes, which I guess we do get one. Does he count as a beefcake? But they're gross, So if you like gross shit, you'll get your fill.
Yeah, the cults. I guess the implications being the perversion of pureness here is really where I guess we're going with this cult. So yeah, you get to see a lot of grossness. Yeah, sexual acts, depravity, adulation of flesh. Worship of a man, essentially. Writhing. Yeah, so that's a thing.
Yeah. I feel like if it wasn't for like the midget boy and that bizarre
crone?
Guy, yeah, the crone. Was it like a dude or a chick? I don't know what it was.
Pretty sure it was a crone.
It was better now that I know it's a crone. It reminded me of Riff Raff from Rocky Horror mixed with Dr. Satan.
Yeah, I can see that.
If it wasn't for those two, this cult would just be a bunch of grotesque moufs writhing around.
I kind of like the lo-fi look of them. You
don't get like.
Yeah, this is not
intricate shit.
What you're getting is like what probably people would do if they were in a weird satanic cult. They wouldn't look nice.
No.
You know what I'm saying? So we get a lot of like bags on heads and
Poops and mouths.
poops, definitely some poops and mouths and ropes and and it has a particular look to it that's its own thing. It certainly feels a lot more realistic than if they were like leather daddies and shit,
Or devil daddies.
or devil devil daddy. He's a guy. Anyway, the only devil daddy I want is his midget.
Dude, he's cool.
I
want a figure of him. Like, I'm not even kidding.
He's a look. This
Like,
I know we're making fun of. We're not making fun of his midgetness, but we're kind of like making it a joke here. But literally, this the cult leader is quite the presence, man.
Yeah.
He is a guy that you see strung throughout the movie, and there's an implication of how his power allows him to be places where he shouldn't be, and even times where he shouldn't be or whatever. But just in general, just him being there is quite the presence. He's a presence before you see him, but once you see him, he cuts such a striking physique, and I just don't mean because he's ripped. He's just a visual character.
Yeah, he commands the scene.
Yeah, he really does, and he's really good at emoting and communicating the menace of this character. And I don't mean a menace as in he's lobbing out one-liners and shit like that as we're used to in horror icons. There's a menace in his casual approach to what he's doing.
Yeah.
There is no theatrics
Like, he
here.
doesn't even care to throw out one-liners. Just like, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, there's no
thing.
There's no theatrics. There's no grandstanding. It's a work that he's doing, and he's familiar with it, and he's comfortable with it. There's no flinching with what he's doing. That's what kind of makes him kind of like, on top of the fact that he's a ripped ass midget, that makes him such a memorable character. So yeah, definitely a big plus for him. I think our lead guy, who ends up being our lead hero, is particularly good, and his character as well. I know that kind of touches on what you said as well, but just for that. And I think the ending of this movie is really strong, and it had to be, because otherwise this movie would have left you high and dry going, what? This movie ends in such a way where any theories you made up along the way, if they're on the right path or close to it, I'm not 100% sure. I'm 100% sure about it, but that's kind of a cool thing about this movie. It solidifies him, and it gives a sense of, like, oh, okay, I think I've got this now. 100 for sure, maybe, right? I kind of like that this movie leaves me like that,
And then you turn, and next to your seat is a huge frog.
That would be cool.
Like, damn, homie.
You know what I'm
Why is
saying?
his pants all the way up to his neck?
Damn, frogs, though.
Yeah.
It was cute. Evil frogs.
Oh, I like the soap frog.
Soap frog was pretty cool.
Yeah. And then they have just like buckets of frogs at some point. I was like, damn, homie. Poor
Frogs.
frogs.
So yeah, very interesting in those regards. Anything you want to add about this movie before we go to a final score?
Yeah, I think visually it's pretty interesting. It's got like this kind of neon-y colors at times, a lot of reds and blues.
Mm-hmm.
It's got this kind of like almost synthy soundtrack at times.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I like the soundtrack. The only selection I didn't like was that ending theme. It's a little corny, but the actual in movie music was cool.
Oh, you mean like the credits?
Yeah.
Yeah, credits theme
like,
was
what was that?
anus.
But like the actual in movie music was cool, and visually it was interesting. Admittedly, I think this is a rewatcher for me because I was in pain, horrible pain even. Literally hurt to keep my eyes open for a while. And that's not a good thing when you have to read subtitles and watch a movie.
Oh,
So,
yeah. If you don't like subtitles, don't watch it either, I guess.
yeah. That being said, like I said, the ending was kind of cool. Or, once stuff kind of started coming together via the midget, I was all in. Again,
The Mage Alert.
Dude, I can't stress how good that midget was. Like, not only because he was a ripped-ass midget, but, like, the presence factor. I'm telling you, it's great.
Yeah, what a way to cast the leader of a cult. You gotta cast somebody that's either charismatic or just has an unshakable presence, and they went with unshakable presence here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't think of a cult leader in a movie, a horror movie anyway, that's kind of as impacting, besides maybe Nyx from Lord of Illusions, which is definitely a scary motherfucker. But Nyx has groundwork to cut. When he comes up, there's been so much laid out for him that you'd have to have a really shitty actor to fill it. Thankfully, they didn't. This guy, like, literally is just a guy in the background for a few scenes, and these guys just stumble, and he has to make a big impression, and he has to make it quick, and it has to fucking work. And so it's not just the look, like you said. It's not the look; it's everything about the guy. Hashtag ripped midge.
Yeah, plus the crone. It's got crone points.
Chrome points, yeah, chrome points.
I really like that crone. It was weird.
Gruesome devil or entity birthing cow head points. No,
Nah, dude, because I saw the titties and they weren't good.
Titties weren't good. I mean, they're not supposed to be good. She's
I
just
know,
supposed to be
but
a vessel.
it was like too gross, you know.
You were trying to milk them titties.
You know what? Like
suckle
when
them?
when something's meant to be gruesome, and thus it gets cool points.
Uh-huh.
I feel like this was too gruesome, and to the point that I was just like,
And it wasn't any of the like blood and gut or
no,
weirdness.
it wasn't. It was
the
like
tits.
the titties, and then you see her butt a lot, and you're like, I don't want to see that shit, dude.
How about the feast chew? You're a big fan of chewing feces, aren't you?
The feast chew was sick, but at least it wasn't a grotesque flabby titty and like freaking ugly ass butt, you know.
All right. Final thoughts for me. Yeah, I agree on the score, man. The score is fucking great, and it creates a particular atmosphere for it. There's some recurring themes that are really good in terms of the score, and there's that 80s synthiness to it. Even though the movie really doesn't, bring up any similarities to any types of 80s movies where we would have a synth score, you know?
Yeah, I think the only thing that comes close is that kind of like
Lighting.
the lighting.
Yeah, and that in itself is also pretty cool. Again, gives it a distinctive look. I think the director here needs a lot more praise because of the way he communicates something so strange, you know? I would say it borders on Lynchian, but Lynch goes full out weird with the way his weirdness comes off. This guy is kind of subtle with his weirdness and communicating like the shift in reality. You know what I'm saying? As subtle as you can be in a movie like this anyway. It's definitely unique and different. And there's just some really cool eye for things here, if you will. So anyway, plus the midge, obviously the midge thing. You gotta get some thing. I love the Lovecraftian notes in this. There's like even wisps of that if you see the art on the walls a little closely. Pretty cool. And that itself was something I also loved. You know, like kind of like the subtleties in the midst of the unsubtle was pretty badass element. But anyway, the best thing I like about this movie is that it's a movie that makes my brain spin. You know, like I'm even having rewatched it, I'm like okay, hold on, I'm constantly sorting stuff out, and I love that sometimes. If it's done right. If it's done wrong, it sucks, and I don't love it. But it's done right here to me, in my opinion. But anyway, let's get to a final score on the horror scale here. Scale of 1 to 10. You want to go first? You want me to go first? What?
So automatically for me, it gets a base level of 6 because of a cool midget.
Midge score.
The cool midget. That's the 6 alone is the cool midget.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get chrome points and frog points, which I'm just gonna put together as another point.
Ranoints.
So we're at 7. It's also got bizarre points, which is good. That's the worst way to rate something. Admittedly, I gotta rewatch it, because it's not a good way to see it when you literally can't see.
Or in agony.
Yeah. So, some of the problems I had probably aren't even true. So,
Yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to say for you or not, because honestly, I think this is a movie that might not be for everyone. Well, I know it's not for everyone, obviously, that's a given. But I don't know if it might be for you or not. But I hope it is.
I feel like,
But I don't know.
I feel like a lot of it was compromised by my state, because, like I said, a lot of times I couldn't even keep my eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna leave space for that. Yeah,
Wiggle
room for that. Midget room is what I like to call it now. But that being said, even in that horrid state, the midge really brought it together, and he alone is like a great presence. So I'm gonna give it a 7 because of that. Because the problems I had, I'm sure will be ironed out. So I don't want to go all out.
I will tell you this: having taken so much time between rewatches, it just threw me back into like puzzle solver mode to the max. It was like if I was watching it for the first time again, except for the fact that I knew the ending and obvious big elements about the whole thing, which helped, by the way. But anyway, so yeah, probably a rewatch of this will come rather sooner than later.
Also,
to avoid going back to, and then I'll throw salt in your eyes to make it even worse.
Yeah, that too. Like, also the fact that you obviously have to read because it's subtitled. I felt like the subtitles were a little fast sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes they are. Yeah.
So it was kind of like I'm
it's not Shin Godzilla fast, but sometimes they are.
Like I'm trying to follow shit, and it's the subtitles going really quick, and it does a lot of that where like people are talking at the same time, so it's just little dashes, and you're like, damn, homie. So yeah, that will probably be something that'll improve upon rewatching.
All right, and what'd you say? Give it a 7, right?
I want to say it a 7.
All right, with wiggle room, midget room, if you will.
Dude, that midget, dude.
I was thoroughly impressed when I first watched this movie, and I gotta say that it threw me through a loop again, which is cool, man. I love when a movie can do that. It's why I love Ari Aster's movies and Robert Eggers' movies. They always have something new to show you, no matter how many times you watch it. This movie is kind of on that level, man. Do I think it's as good as like Ari Aster? No, because that's a little bit more cohesive work that works on the whole. Same with like something as surrealistic as The Lighthouse from Robert Eggers. It just coheres more as you go along, a lot better than this movie does. However, given the content matter of this movie, the subject matter, if you will, I think that weird kind of like spaciness, cosmicness, if you will, to use the words of the movie, to the way it develops is all in its favor. It's a weird fucking movie, man. It's a weird movie.
What was this, Turkish?
Turkish, yeah.
So this is like the Turkish Void.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah.
Only with midget instead of a weird dude.
Yeah, man, that's a good comparison. There's definitely a Lovecraftian element to this movie, beyond just the superficial cult thing. But there's also ample room to just ground this in something else if you want to, and that and everything positive that I've mentioned in this review make this a really strong movie for me. I'm gonna give it a solid 9. It's not for everyone, I'll tell you that, but it's definitely my bag of chips. If you haven't seen Baskin, check it out. I think it's on Hulu at the moment. Let us know what you think, man. And go ahead.
Also, NECA gotta get on making the midget.
Yeah,
for their
I don't think we'll ever see that.
Or horror figs.
But in a perfect world, huh?
Dude, the midget, and then it would come with like a bucket of frogs.
Damn, bogs.
Bucket of frogs, and
it had an alternate head. Oh wait, can't say that if you haven't watched the movie. But the point is, you know what I'm talking about. The point is,
it would have a little stool.
We need one. Little stool accessory.
Yeah.
You'd think a stool wouldn't be cool, but that's a cool stool. Damn it.
Yeah, that stool was a menacing ass stool, dude.
As far as
damn, homie,
we
had a banquito like that. I want to burn it now.
Huh? Anyway, tell us what you think about this midge flick. In the comments down below. Hit like, share, subscribe, and those notification buttons. I guess we're out.